Your Steve Jones Show podcast is loading now. The Steve Jones Show podcast is sponsored by Sunbury Motors, North 4th Street in Sunbury, and Sunbury Motors Kia, routes 11 and 15 in Hummel's Wharf. Sports talk where your voice counts. This is the Steve Jones Show on News Radio 1070 WKOK. Now from the Sunbury Motors studio, here's Steve Jones.
Sunbury Motors, 4th Street in Sunbury. Sunbury Motors Kia, routes 11 and 15 in Hummel's Wharf, and online at sunburymotors.com. Ford, Lincoln, Kia, Hyundai. Get to that in a moment. Great pre-owned inventory as well. All at Sunbury Motors. And don't forget, who has Hyundai? Sunbury Motors has Hyundai, and it's a Christmas in July sale for Sunbury Hyundai. Great deals. Check them out. Sunbury Motors, 4th Street in Sunbury. Sunbury Motors, Kia, routes 11 and 15 in Hummel's Wharf, and online at sunburymotors.com. All right, play-by-play call of the day. How about a Cubs triple play?
Is a diving stop for Brian. He'll step on third, throw to first. Oh, he caught it. Is that a triple play?
That's a triple play.
A triple play. How about that? Chris Bryant gets the Cubs out of the inning.
Your basic 5-3 triple play. Our play-by-play call today. It's been a tough day here at the radio station. Have any of you ever seen the movie Goodfellas?
I've heard of it.
Yes. In fact, Henry Hill, played by Ray Liotta. Is Allenwood near us?
Yes, about half hour north of here.
Yeah, Henry Hill, I believe, was in Allenwood. It's either Lewisburg or Allenwood. I think it was Allenwood he was in. And Ray Liotta plays Henry Hill. And at one point, he is discussing the movie Goodfellas with Paul Sorvino, who plays Paulie. And Robert De Niro. He says, we were doing well. He says, and we were fine with Paulie because we paid him his tribute, which means getting his cut. It's been a hard day here for us at the radio station. We have to endure it once a year, but we have to pay our tribute to the suit on this July the 30th. Probably the last thing the suit ever expected, that we would relate his birthday to a scene in Goodfellas. All right, so with that, off to Kansas we go. Dennis Dodd, CBSSports.com. Dennis, hope everything's going well for you out there.
Life in Kansas is very serene. It's raining. There's no football, so that puts me right on par with the country. So it's a little bit depressing.
Yeah, I'd say at least you're getting rain. We haven't had rain here in a long, long time. Okay, so here we are into the final week of July. I think some people thought they might have some answers going on. It seems like, and I've said this to others on the show today, you almost feel like the goal is to play a game. And then the goal after that is to play another game.
And I think that's how it'll be. I think it's a week-to-week proposition, especially with what happened to the Miami Marlins. I mean, I really expect that to happen in college football at some point. And I think they're if we get there with a season, I think the stakeholders are kind of modeling out that sort of consideration where you have large amounts of bye weeks to make up games. But right now, it's just everything is kicking the can down the road. The ACC is meeting. There may be a schedule format coming out, if not the actual dates. But, what does it even mean when next Tuesday the NCAA Board of Governors is supposed to meet, and they cancel fall championships. Because I don't know if we can play football if that happens.
Right. Okay. Why would that, in your opinion? Because the conferences dictate football. So why would an NCAA decision, and so the audience understands, why would the NCAA decision have an influence on that?
As with most things in college these days, it's the optics of the thing.
Right.
It's the same reason that if there's a outbreak when the students come back, because there will be inevitably somewhere. That may have nothing to do with football, but it'll look. Excuse me. These kids are still out there. They don't have a say in their working conditions. They haven't negotiated anything like the pros have.
Right.
And if the Board of Governors votes no fall championships, then you basically boxed in FBS football.
Right.
No fall championships. That means no FCS Division II or Division III playoffs. No fall championship sports. I suspect that some of those will play, soccer, volleyball, what have you, but a lot of them won't, because how do you rationalize no championships and then play a regular season in the middle of a pandemic? And there'll be tremendous pressure again on those stakeholders at that point. Why are you the only ones of substance playing?
On Monday, the Big 12 is going to have their virtual media day. And not only that, Dennis, they want to push forward with playing 12 games. Ball State's replaced Iowa and Iowa State's schedule. UNLV has now been added to TCU's schedule. I'll start with this. Oklahoma is one of many that, along with Missouri State, to request a waiver to go to week 0. And now they've dropped that. If you want to do it, you can just do it. You don't need a waiver anymore. You don't need a waiver anymore. But they did put the request in a while ago.
Yep.
They have a bye week after that. It's almost like, hey, we're going to play a game and see how it plays out. What was your thought when you saw what Oklahoma was trying to do? Because that means they have to be in camp this weekend.
Yeah, I think a lot of schools are going to try to do this just to get a game in and see what the feel is like. What's it like? What are we going to have to do to get this season in? I'm surprised more schools haven't done it, actually. And then the big weekends on September 5th for week 1. There's still a lot of wiggle room for the Big 10 and Pac-12, which I think will end up going to 10 games plus one non-conference game. They haven't said when they're going to start. I think there was a report last week that the Pac-12 is starting no earlier than September 19th, and maybe even the 26th. So they're just trying to hope this thing dissipates, and there's no indication that it's going to. And I keep coming back to the point that it's not. They want to take their cues from the NFL, but the NFL and college football are going to be on parallel tracks. So you're watching the NBA, which starts soon, and baseball, which has already started. But again, the Marlins thing was horrible if you're, thinking about playing football.
Right.
So you're just trying to get some sort of football being played.
Well, part of that is the team. A couple of schools that would be in a bind would be, for example, BYU, Notre Dame, as some of the few independents out there. 132 years of Notre Dame football. Is this a potential step in the direction of being a full-fledged ACC member?
I guess it's a potential step if they end up playing a conference schedule and then a full-fledged conference member, then competing for conference championship and what would be an automatic berth in the Orange Bowl. Potentially it would be. Someone alerted me, though, to the fact that it may not even happen this year, and we're still waiting for word from the ACC. If Notre Dame competes for the championship, it would have to play Clemson twice. It's already got that big game, I think, in November.
Yeah.
Clemson, Notre Dame. And then if they play in the championship game, I can't see them playing anybody else but Clemson in the ACC.
Right.
Competitively, that might be a deal breaker. But I keep coming back to this, and I wrote about it today on the site. If Notre Dame's going to join a conference through the year 2036, it has to be the ACC.
Yep.
Because all those teams in that league signed over their TV rights to the conference If they leave,
yep.
The conference retains their TV rights. That's another way of saying they ain't going to leave.
Right, and by the way, that is when we've talked about this on the show before. Grain of rights, because I'm going to go back. I think it was the Big 12, the first one to do it.
Yeah.
They were getting rated left and right.
Yeah.
And grant of rights means you sign it over. Like it's not yours anymore unless you're participating.
Right. And it's a show of solidarity. The SEC's never done it because they never felt like they had to do it. They thought they were united, so they never did that. The Big 12 went through it about 10 years ago, and they had that big upheaval in conference realignment. And, Texas didn't sign it because they've got their own network.
Yeah.
I don't know if Oklahoma signed it because they've got a pretty lucrative deal with Fox for their third-tier rights. But yeah, it's a show of solidarity, and it's really, as John Swofford, the commissioner, retires next June, it's one of his greatest accomplishments besides, basketball success, the network, the ACC network. It's getting those teams to sign that up, where it really takes care of a conference that isn't known first for football, frankly, and it's gotten to be pretty good at it.
Yeah, no question. And, of course, let's never forget the NBC deal because that's $15 million for home games. For Notre Dame.
Yeah, and they've had a relationship with NBC since 1991. But if they did, if they were to play in the conference in football, that money would pale in comparison as to what they could earn if they shared the revenue. Now, the question becomes, would the ACC let them keep the NBC money and earn conference money? I don't know the answer to that.
Let me ask you this question, because when Jim Delaney tried to get Notre Dame to go to the Big Ten in 1999, it was, hey, you're either all in or all out. And I know the faculty senate at Notre Dame said, yes, they wanted to go to the Big Ten, but when they met in Dublin in the Board of Trustees, they wanted to keep their independence. How do the ACC athletic directors feel about the Notre Dame arrangement where, there's some football games, they're all in on everything else, but not all in on football? How did some ADs in the ACC feel about that Big East type of arrangement?
Well, I think they like it because number one, it sells tickets. If you've got Notre Dame on your schedule, and even if you don't have them at home, if you have them on the road, that's a good TV rating. It helps the strength of schedule. It helps recruiting. Come here and you're going to play Notre Dame. Notre Dame plays 5 or 6 ACC teams every year. So I call it, they went in half pregnant. Everybody says you can't be half pregnant. Well, Notre Dame is, and the ACC is. So it's a great marketing arrangement. Notre Dame, when the CFP started in 2013, found themselves suddenly on the outside looking in. They had no guaranteed bowls to play for.
Right.
Which surprised a lot of people. So they had to do this deal with somebody. And the ACC, I think, was about the only one willing to let them in halfway, where Notre Dame has a scheduling agreement, if you will, but still has access to all the ACC bowls. In other words, I think it's 2 out of every 10 years Notre Dame can go to the Orange Bowl.
Right.
They have access to all the other lower bowls. Not that Notre Dame would need to have that per se, but they didn't have access to a bowl guaranteed in any given year.
Which is, by the way, the arrangement they had with the Big East. And with the Big East, if I recall their arrangement with them, that if they didn't qualify for one of the BCS bowls, they actually had the Big East number 2 bowl. They knocked some people out of the number 2 spot after they had very good Big East seasons. Yeah, no, I mean, that was part of the problem. You're right. Yeah, that was definitely part of the problem. When you look at week 0 versus what the Pac-12 is proposing, I think I heard somebody say Cal UCLA would be Friday, September 18th, whatever. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So let's just roll the dice here for a second. Say it's a go. What's a better go, week 0 or waiting? In your opinion, based on everything you think? Given the fact that none of these conferences are on the same page, I think we're going to see both. I think we're going to see a season, if we play at all, where teams don't play an equal amount of games,
we won't know what bowl eligibility means or what how do you play for a conference championship. I think there's every possibility that the ACC goes to, if Notre Dame plays a 15-team league and the top 2 teams play for the championship like the Big 12 does. And there'll be different philosophies. Like I just told you about the Big 10, the Pac-12, I think they want to build in weeks so they can make up games. But the Big 10 hasn't committed itself. They made this big announcement. Well, are you gonna play games in September? Are you going to go October 1st? I mean, I've heard of this model where they just play a few games. Since you're only playing conference games only, you can spread them out and not have to have 14 games every Saturday in September because of the non-conference aspect of it. So I think it's all over the board, frankly.
Yeah. Not only is it all over the board, but say somebody in the Big Ten, hey, let's start week 0. You'd have to be in training camp this weekend. So,
yeah, that's true. And I think they start hitting the September 15th start hitting next week, and I suppose that earlier in the week that would have to be the October 29th folks. Yeah.
Yeah, my understanding is Oklahoma is going to go right from the 2-week mini camp, that's what I call it, right into a training camp starting on Friday because that's what they're allowed as a training camp for the opener.
Yeah, and I have to say that Lincoln Riley's been a voice of reason in all this. He said from the beginning,
yes.
I remember asking him in April, what's your drop-dead date for starting on time? He goes, we can start in August. Give me 15 or 20 practices. We'll be ready. He's been really, really good about this. He was the one who said, why do we need to come in June 1st? They came in after July 1st. And he was right. Look at all the outputs we had. I don't know if coming in June 1st solved anything, except maybe to mitigate the spread of the virus. But we don't know that for sure now. A lot of these schools are having 0, very small positives. But, and maybe that was the advantage of it. We don't know it for sure.
Finally, with the Big 12 having its virtual media day coming up on Monday, what do you want to drive at with some of your questions? Because obviously you'll be a participant in this and try and get a feel for what everybody's thinking. So what sticks to the top of your list that you want to get to with these coaches?
It's going to be very little about football, I'll tell you that.
Right. That's what I thought. That's exactly what I expected.
I'm concerned, yeah.
Yep.
Do you think, asking the players, do you think being tested once a week is doable? Because that's the NCAA recommendation. Can you discipline yourself not to interact with anyone after that Wednesday test, if it's on Wednesday, 72 hours before the game? Are you worried about your safety, about playing against somebody who has it? How do your parents feel? Do you feel fairly represented in your working conditions? Because it is work. It's a 50-hour-a-week job that's been documented. We can talk about free scholarships till you're blue in the face, but it is work. And they love playing football. They want to be there. At what point would you not want to participate? What would have to happen? All those things. I can think of more. That's off the top of my head.
Well, I knew you'd have some off the top of your head, so that's why I asked. Dennis, please stay safe. Great respect, as always, for the great work you do. It's always great talking with you.
Steve, it's great. Thank you so much.
Dennis Dodd, CBS Sports. All right, we'll come back with more in a moment on News Radio 1070 WKOK, brought to you by Sunbury Motors. It's the suit's birthday. A message from this station and the Ad Council. All right, welcome. What?
I must have missed that.
It's big everywhere. So the SEC is going to go with 10 conference games?
Yes, 10 conference games starting September 26th, so they're moving their season back.
Interesting. But does that mean that that's where they're going to start the conference season? Will they allow them to play non-conference games? Because there were other SEC schools that the SEC was out there trying to schedule some non-conference games. Some of them with FCS. Furman could make out very well with this. See, that's my question. You could play 10 conference games. But does that mean that September 5th, 12th, 19th, you could schedule 2 other games?
Well, Seth Emerson of The Athletic just says it appears Georgia Tech will not happen in 2020. So my guess is no, but doesn't really mean been confirmed yet.
Wow. Such an emotional game. I watch it every... No, I don't. All right.
Taking your calls at 800-795-9565. This is The Steve Jones Show on News Radio 1070 WKOK. Now, from the Sunbury Motors Studio, here's Steve Jones.
Today's show brought to you by Sunbury Motors, 4th Street in Sunbury. Sunbury Motors Kia, routes 11 and 15 in Hummel's Wharf. And online at sunburymotors.com. Ford, Lincoln, Kia, Hyundai, which I'll get to in a moment. Great pre-owned inventory, fabulous sales staff, lots of deals, tremendous service department. And yes, who has Hyundai? Sunbury Motors has Hyundai. And it's the Christmas in July sale at Sunbury Hyundai as well. Great deals. July's got a couple of days left. Sunbury Motors, 4th Street in Sunbury. Sunbury Motors Kia, routes 11 and 15 in Hummel's Wharf, and online at sunburymotors.com. There have been very few positives during this pandemic, but Matt and I found one today.
Back to pass, looking all the way to Titus. Pick six coming! Krieger! Gone! Touchdown! Shikellamy! Krieger saw what I saw!
That in an era where we've had to do things virtually, we have both found peace and comfort in celebrating the Suit's birthday virtually instead of in person.
That is right.
Because you can go on Zoom and you can log on and not hit the video button and your name's there. Doesn't mean you're there. But it means you logged on and your name's there.
So true.
It's nothing like the Suit's birthday party during a pandemic. We played play-by-play cuts of his greatest moment. And we had Marilyn Monroe sing happy birthday to him.
Not bad.
What more could someone ask for? And not only that, we got the benefit of having this be a virtual celebration. I don't think I've felt this much inner peace on July 30th in a decade. All right, let's get to the SEC. The SEC has left some interpretation here. The SEC announced today that it was going to move to a 10-game conference-only schedule for the 2020 season, according to the Atlanta Constitution and Sports Illustrated. They're going to push the start of the season to Saturday, September 26th, which was originally scheduled to be week 4 of the 2020 campaign. It's still not known yet how the SEC will fill out the additional 2 games on its conference-only schedule. That part we don't know. So they have to come up with 2 extra opponents. This means Alabama may have to actually,
not play the Citadel.
They're going to have to play teams they've never played before. I mean, do you realize... Now, I know Alabama and Georgia played in the SEC championship game and the national championship game. But let's take that off because that's an extra. All right? Remember yesterday I was talking about the Big Ten schedule that Mr. Kovac sent us yesterday? Or actually, he sent it to me earlier in the month and resent it yesterday. George Kovac. George, I appreciate what you did very, very much. Thank you. The And remember when I was talking about Wisconsin? I said, well, they played in 2016, but that was the Big Ten championship game. That doesn't, I mean, it counts in the series, but it wasn't scheduled. Do you realize that from 2016 to 2020, if the schedule had held, Alabama will have played in the regular season USC twice and Georgia once? How about that? They have rarely played Georgia over the years. Bear Bryant did not play Georgia very often. So now they may, I mean, they're already on the schedule for this year anyway, but like suddenly out of nowhere, do they play Florida? Do they, I mean, they have to play Tennessee. That's a crossover game. But they're not going to play a +1.
Yeah, and Brett McMurphy just tweeted this, Steve. SEC's decision to go with 10-game conference schedules only eliminates 4 SEC, ACC state rivalries. So that's Florida, Florida State, Georgia, Georgia Tech, UK and UL, and USC, Clemson, along with LSU, Texas, Tennessee, Oklahoma, and Michigan State and North Carolina State.
Right. I didn't think those games were. Well, first of all, Michigan State, NC State, or whatever, was not going to take place anyway.
Right.
Because the Big Ten's not playing non-conference games in the regular season. But LSU, Texas, Tennessee, Oklahoma. The ACC going with the +1 model. It does, for example, Florida State and Miami can still play Central Florida or Florida Atlantic or Florida International if they want. Or South Florida if they wish. Clemson can still play Coastal Carolina, Citadel if they want. Because, I mean, they talk about it has to be in-state. Georgia Tech could play, if they wish, Georgia State. And, of course, Louisville could play, for example, Eastern Kentucky. Something like that. You know, they've got to keep it within the state, they said. Auburn was going to play North Carolina. That's out. LSU, Texas out. That game was going to be Baton Rouge, Tennessee, and Oklahoma out. Now, that also means that the Big 12 has to make... I mean, the Big 12 wants to... I mean, see, they're losing games in this, the Big 12. Already, TCU has added UNLV. To replace Iowa, Iowa State added Ball State this week. So the Big Ten, the Pac-12, and the SEC are all going to play 10 conference games apiece. No non-conference games. The ACC still wants to play 1 non-conference game. The Big 12 says they want to play 3. So there you go.
Speaking of the Big 12, Steve, they just canceled virtual football media days for next week.
It was going to be Monday.
Yep. Now canceled.
Yep. Well, they don't want to see it. It's difficult for them to be in a spot where they're answering all these questions about what other people are doing because now they've had big changes in here. And some of the big changes include, I don't know, I'd have to look at the Big 12 schedule to see what their openers are. We already know Oklahoma's playing Missouri State. And I think the Big 12 is the only one. They haven't. I mean, the Big 12 has sort of made an announcement about what they're doing. They idealistically want to play 12 games, but now you're losing with the ACC doing +1 and trying to keep it in state. Right, that eliminates playing a Big 12 team. The SEC, the Big 10, the Pac-12 have all said conference only, so that eliminates a Big 12 team. So the Big 12 is now losing a lot of games. They have to now rework their schedule. That's why they can't have a virtual media day. because now they have to revamp their schedule. So that's why the Big 12 had to cancel it, because now they're looking around saying, okay, wait a minute, we may have to rework this. How do you rework it? Do you go, again, with the Big 12, the difference is you have 10 schools. So do you do 9 plus 1 to get to 10? Do you go with 9 plus 2? Or do you go with 10 and you have to play somebody twice in a season in your conference? That's why they had to postpone. When you are at the mercy of what other conferences do, and guess what? It affects what you're doing. There's your problem. I mean, Texas was going to play LSU. Well, Texas now has an opening. This is where, Bucknell should have played. They could have cleaned up financially. I'm just kidding. Just kidding. It's a joke.
I just don't get, Steve. Maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong with any of this, but I just don't understand why the Power 5 conferences can't be all in the same ideal here of just playing conference games. So then when it comes to determining the college football playoffs, if you have it, everybody's got an even playing field because everybody's playing 10 conference games. Big 12 still trying to add stuff. ACC still trying to add one.
Well, let me jump in on that for a second. You've got the Pac-12 playing 10, the Big 10 playing 10, the SEC playing 10, and the ACC playing 10. Okay, the only difference between those four conferences right now is the ACC still has in place the +1. So they're all playing the same number of conference games. Remember, though, the problem with the Big 12 is they've only got 10 teams, so you'd have to play somebody home and away to get to 10. See, you see what I'm saying here? So actually, everybody's gone to the model you've talked about.
Right, just for the Big 12 though, them trying to play 12 games, that's where I don't think that's a good idea.
I think that went off the boards moments ago when the SEC knocked that out.
Yeah, I agree. I don't see how anybody plays non-conference games anymore after what the SEC just did.
Oh no, I disagree with that. Oklahoma's going to play Missouri State, and I think they're going to play the game. I mean, they're going to play the game. Iowa State's going to play Ball State. They're going to play the game. I'd be as of today, unless something, we're on a day-by-day basis. All right, we're on a week-by-week basis. As I said, the goal yesterday is to play a game, and then the second goal is to play a second game. Those are the goals. And for the Big 12, see, what they've done is they've lost their Power 5 scheduling ability. Thus, they can't have their virtual media day on Monday because now they have to revamp what they're doing. I mean, I don't know like, for example, I mentioned TCU had a hole, so they filled it with UNLV. Okay. I mentioned Iowa State had a hole because of Iowa. They filled it with Ball State. And I think that that's where they stand. What I find interesting about what the SEC is doing is that they're starting after everybody. I realize the South has been hit hard in recent weeks, but the numbers in the South are looking better. It also buys time with the number of people on campus. You'll find out before September 26th if you have an outbreak on your campus, because everybody's coming back the last week of August. Penn State starts on August the 24th. Now, Notre Dame, for example, moved up their classes. Notre Dame is starting on August 10th. So, Notre Dame is starting classes for the fall a week from Monday, with the idea that they'll wrap up the fall semester before Thanksgiving and then go on break. So they had the Big 12 had to postpone their media day because guess what? Some of them have now lost games early in the season, and now they're trying to figure out what they're going to do. Do they go with a 9+2? Do they go with a 9+1? That way they get the 10 games. Because everybody else is playing 10 except the ACC, which right now is 11. But does the ACC now revamp and take the 11th game off the board because they've now lost Georgia Tech, they've now lost Clemson, South Carolina, they've lost Louisville, Kentucky, and they've lost Florida State. So do you now take that off the board and just play 10? Or, television-wise, do you keep the +1? Because I'm sure Notre Dame has no problem finding a +1. We'll take a break. We'll wrap it up in a moment on the Suit's birthday. 12th mention of the show here on News Radio 1070 WKOK.
Trade in and trade up at Sunbury Motors Kia. From now until the end of the month, Sunbury Motors Kia will give you more. That's right, more than your car is worth. Take advantage of Kia's first ever trade-in assist bonus cash. Get an extra $1,500 on third row 2020 Serenos. There's 22 available with savings up to $7,025. SMC has an extra $1,000 on the versatile 2020 Sportages. There's 27 available with savings up to $4,655. Plus an extra $1,000 on the stylish 2020 Kia Soul with 17 available and savings up to $4,424. The demand for quality pre-owned vehicles is at an all-time high. So stop in Sunbury Motors Kia for your upgrade today. Trade in, trade up at Sunbury Motors Kia on the Strip in Hummel's Wharf.
Retail trade-in assist applies for model year 2000 or newer Kia or competitive model.
Great to have you with us on the show today. So the Big Ten is going to go, in all likelihood, with 10 games. They haven't announced yet what the number yet, but it seems like every report is the lean is to 10, possibly starting on September 5th. The ACC is going to go 10+1, although that +1 had a wrench thrown in it today by the SEC, because the SEC decided that they're going to play 10 conference games and only 10 conference games in the regular season starting September 26th. So that would knock out Clemson, South Carolina, Florida State, Louisville, Kentucky, and Georgia Tech. So let's see if that makes them change. The Big 12 then postponed their virtual media day because now their schedule, for example, Texas was going to play LSU in Baton Rouge. And obviously that's off the board. So that's why now the Big 12 has to make an adjustment. What does the Big 12 do? Do they do 9+1? Do they do 9+2? Because the Big 12 appeared to be on the train of attempting to play a 12-game regular season. Well, some options in that 12-game regular season have disappeared in the last 24 hours. Big Ten made its decision back on July 9th, so that gave the Big 12 schools that had Big Ten schedules, since it was July 9th, it gave them plenty of time to make a phone call here and a phone call there. And, for example, we mentioned Iowa State came up with Ball State. So it opened that up. We may find out about the Big Ten schedule as early as tomorrow. It could be as late as the middle of next week, but the earliest we could find out about it could be tomorrow. So I would say the clock on the release of the schedule begins ticking tomorrow. And again, it could go as late as the middle of next week. A lot of tough decisions being made. Everybody knew this was not going to be easy. Now, if you were within the confines of the broadcast facility of Champions, aka our radio station, you would never know any of this because it's mostly been about my Saturdays are free. What about my Fridays? Every once in a while, Matt and Lawrence raise their hands and say, we have stuff to do here too. It's almost like I'm eavesdropping on the staff meetings.
That about sums it up.
I can assure you I'm not.
I feel his pain too, but it is what it is.
Well, it is his birthday. So from all of us, and I speak for all of you in the audience, happy birthday, Les Suits, from us, including the audience, to you.